Welcome, everyone. So grateful to have Dr. Eddie here again. It's that time for already into March that Dr. Eddie is joining us. And he sent me this topic, and I was like, oh, this is another good one. Is he triggered? So what do
Uh,
you have for us today, Dr. Eddie?
Tammy, you're supposed to be my partner, and I come up with these topics that are extremely controversial, maybe even taboo, and you never talk me off the ledge.
I don't.
No,
No,
you
these,
don't. You just
and you know
go
what
out there.
happens?
Oh,
I
what?
actually end up referring people to those because I'm like, it's the stuff that has to be talked about. So I'm great. I'm
Well,
your partner and I'm grateful. How's that? So
thank you. I
I'll take the heat
appreciate
with you.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is one that I know people are going to be once again like, what is wrong with this guy? Why do he keep talking about this? But the reason we keep talking about it is because we really want to help. We want to make a difference. We're not judging. We're not saying one person is right, one person is wrong. Okay, there's healing that needs to be done on both sides. Healing on one side, recovery on the other. But that's why I bring it up. But more importantly, I bring it up to keep you informed. So this way you know what is going on in those moments that we're dealing with this and it seems to be getting out of hand. Because I think if you have that knowledge, once again, you're empowered. I'm giving you the why, what's happening. So today, that's what we're going to talk about. If he triggered, and again, we're using the pronoun he, it could be if she was the one who cheated, she triggered, all right? Um, but we often hear the trade partners say things like, Tammy, like, why can't he get it right? Right? Why can't he get it right? Okay, he's not acting out, but yet he's defensive, he withdraws, he wilts, said nothing, he has tantrums, he lies about the littlest, minute, stupidest things in the world. All right. He keeps things to himself. He doesn't share things that he should be sharing. And you look at all of this and you say, wow, you know what? He's exhibiting the behavior that you would expect to see from a young child. Right? That's what it seems to be. Well, there are two reasons for that. The first one is one that I've discussed in depth on this, webinar many, many times, and that's the idea of being emotionally underdeveloped, not being given the skill needed to be able to engage on an emotional level that is one that brings a very strong bond. The second one, however, is I believe what's happening is that when we're in the midst of couples where she's grieving, there are times when he is triggered. Yes, I know that if you're a betrayed partner, you're some of you are probably saying, why are we even talking about them? We shouldn't even be, who gives a damn if he's triggered or not? Well, you know what? I give a damn and you should give a damn too, because if we can resolve some of this, then I think your healing process becomes a lot smoother along the way. Okay. So hear me out. And let me see what this is. Now, John Gottman, very famous, well-known psychologist, really like the marriage guru, written many books on the subjects of marriage and relationship. He referred to this scenario as an individual being flooded. Okay, this is when an individual, the anxiety peaks, and they can no longer stay in that situation or environment and act in an irrational manner. Okay, they can't act rationally because he says they're flooded. A wonderful observation from a brilliant man. However, on my humble opinion, it falls short. And the reason being because it assumes that the source of an individual's anxiety at that moment is coming solely from the current stimuli, the action that is taking place. But there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, okay? Because while indeed the betrayer is experiencing anxiety, as his partner grieves, depending on the circumstances, he also may be being triggered by past events that happened in his childhood that seem remarkably similar to his inner child. So therefore, when that happens, he is being triggered. So here's an example, right? Tom's wife, she's grieving his infidelity. She's very upset. She's crying and she's explaining how her heart is broken and she can't believe what he had done to her and their relationship. Tom feels really sad by all of this, which is again normal. He's saddened by what he had done. However, as his wife continues, which again, I'm not saying she shouldn't continue, all right? If she's grieving, grieving is healing, all right? She needs to do this. As she's doing that, all right, what happens, Tom starts to wilt. He just starts to wilt, all right? And he begins to feel this overwhelming sense of helplessness. He's sitting there and it's like, there's nothing I can do here to help. He wants to put his hands over his ears and turn off the sounds that are going on, including her crying. So Tom is becoming what Dr. Gottman would say, flooding, because he's now emotionally dysregulated, right? Following me that far? Okay. So, but you see, Tom is not being triggered at that moment by just what his wife is her grieving. That's not what's really triggering him. He was there for a while. He was able to hold on, but he was triggered by trauma or neglect from his past that he's unaware of with the subconscious. And that causing his anxiety to dramatically increase, making it very difficult for him to be attentive to his wife. His inner child is observing the situation and what he's saying goes, this reminds me of when mom would cry to me about dad because he was absent and he was emotionally abusive. And during that, and this happened quite often, where mom would just be sitting there and she'd be bawling her eyes out and say, why can't his father love on her? And near Tom, he's just sitting across from her at the kitchen table, and he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what to do. So he's just sitting there in silence as she goes on, and just wishing that she's gonna say, you know what? Go out and play. It's okay. I'm all right. I'll be fine. You go. Because even if when he did go away, he still was feeling guilty. He's feeling bad about her. I don't know how to help her. So now with his wife, Tom's in that same place. Although he's unaware that the influence of what his mother did in the past, what that's having on the situation today. That's what I talk about him being triggered. So therefore, what's happening, the response, the anxiety response he should have is being magnified. And it's to a point where it becomes overwhelming. And that's why you get those behaviors I listed out at the beginning. Because what he's trying to do is shut it down. In many cases, he's not really aware that this is what's going on. So here's another example, right? Could be a betrayed partner, right, makes an attempt to be vulnerable and sharing some emotional information, and his wife doesn't really react like he expects. Okay, he's expecting, to be validated. He doesn't get validation, and so therefore he becomes disappointed. Which, okay, fine, he could be disappointed, and what he should do is just voice that. You know what? I tried to be vulnerable. Obviously, you're not in a place to accept it, but it is rather disappointing. But I understand you can't accept it right now. Right? Move on. But that's not what happened. His inner child could be very angry. Could be now thinking back to maybe being raised in a home where he had no voice. Nobody ever listened to him. Nobody cared. If he tried to be vulnerable, it was just ignored with that. So, and in some cases, what it is, it's the tonality of the way a message is delivered that can lead these men to subconsciously be triggered. There are many different factors. I'm just giving you three. And the reason for us talking about this is because, all right, those of you who have been hurt by his actions, right, you become emotionally dysregulated at times because of the trauma you're going through. Perfectly, that is expected. But what happens when both of you become dysregulated? Not a really good situation. First and foremost, those who've been betrayed are more and more frustrated because it's like, what the hell? Why is this now about you instead of me? And I fully agree with that. Okay. But worse than that is now we've got button heads. You know, when somebody talks to me and I ask, they'll tell me about the week and they'll go, well, we really got into it. Like, I'm like, whoa, time out. What do you mean we got into it? You mean she got into it? No, I went back at her. I go, why you went back at her? What? And I'm not judging. I want to find out why. What is that about? And sure enough, he's been triggered. We walked through it. He's been triggered. And that's why I really try to work with men to be able to work on that. So now here's the question, all right? What do we do about this situation? Okay. First, I'm not asking those of you who've been betrayed to walk around on eggshell worrying about, am I triggering my partner? Am I saying something that's getting them upset? Okay. I also want you holding things back. Well, I really probably shouldn't say that because I know, no, I don't want that either. You need to grieve. That is how you heal when you grieve. But I do want you to be aware when you're seeing the signs that I've listed before, the things that he could be doing that are troubling. And when these things are happening, perhaps you could say, you know what? It seems you're being triggered. And then maybe you could tell them, okay, take 10 minutes, go figure out what's going on and come back so we can talk about this. This way we're not button heads or him shutting down. Now, you don't even need to do that. Okay, because again, I don't ask a lot of those who've been betrayed. You don't need to do that. But it really depends upon what is your objective in that moment. Do you want someone who's there, who is trying to listen and to assist you? If that's the case, then you're probably better off taking the advice I just gave. If your objective is just to beat him down, then you're probably not going to take that. And now some of you are probably like, oh my God, did you really say that? Well, let me tell you, what a woman said to me, it was about 2 weeks ago, a betrayed partner. And what she said was, you know what? I just want him to hurt as bad as I did. And I want him to feel that pain for the rest of his life. What's the point? What vengeance? That's it? That's what you're going to serve for the rest of your life? Vengeance? I would think you'd want to be happy. I think you'd want to be joyful. I think you'd want to feel at peace. You're not going to have that if you keep trying to serve vengeance. So, and I know that's not the majority of you women by a long shot. Okay, that's not what's going on. So therefore, the way this really gets fixed, it is up to the betrayer to be able to understand this. So therefore, one, they must be aware that they are being triggered. That's first and foremost. Okay? Then they need to learn, how do I manage myself in those moments when I am triggered? And that's what we teach with the inner child model. That's what we teach in our courses that we have through Seeking Integrity, the workshop that we do. managing it, part of managing it is learning to separate the pain from the past and the current situation. We want to take that pain away, therefore reducing the current trigger to a point where, again, it's something I can manage, I can tolerate, I can stay there and not engage in any of those behaviors that I mentioned before. Right? But you have to understand that these men have to understand what's going on is their inner child is trying to protect them. And that's why they will wilt, that's why they will withdraw, that's why they will lie, that is why they will be defensive. Trying to protect, because what he wants to do is shut down the conflict. And that's the last thing you want to do, because if you shut it down, then she's not grieving. And if she's not grieving, she's not healing. The other thing that needs to happen is that as you know, they're going through this being triggered, they need to follow up later, and they need to explain what was troubling them. As they sit and they figure it out, what was it? What was the reason they were being triggered? Okay, and therefore what we're doing, we're asking them to be vulnerable, which is something that we want. We need that. That's part of the whole thing of growth. And the last thing on this list, and there are many more, but the last one I'm going to talk about here, is for them to understand that they may not always get the reaction that they were hoping or expected from you at that time. Okay? But that's okay. What they have to do is they just need to voice what it is they're feeling, and then be understanding that you're not in a position at this moment to be able to give them what they need. Okay, again, everything centers around those who have been betrayed. We are leaning that way to make sure that you feel safe, that you feel comfortable, you feel protected. But at the same time, do we not want to look at the entire landscape of everything that's going on? So that what we can do is that we can make an environment where he can be there for you to support you, not give in to those laundry list of behaviors. And therefore, that would be by helping to acknowledge the fact he's triggered, and continuing this right now at this moment is not going to serve any benefit. So I need to give him that break to go figure it out, come back, maybe tell me what it was about, maybe not do that at that moment, but maybe just focus on me once again. So that's what I got for you today, Tammy.
Good stuff as always. I was thinking while you're talking about, it's so hard to identify, oh, that's my inner kid, that's my inner child, showing up. And I have a really good therapist, and like there will be moments and she go, how old do you feel right now? And it's like even taking that moment of going like, okay, my partner is saying something and all this, but I'm not showing up as my adult self. I'm feeling like that 7-year-old who, yeah, mom was whatever, but having the ability to visualize that. And I love what you're sharing about, you got two wounded kids, that are showing up,
Right.
go look at a playground and, see kids fighting. I'm like, that's what you got when you're trying to handle adult world things, and it's difficult to do that, and even when you were saying, if you don't get the reaction you expected, just, you voice what you feel. But,
Yeah.
like voicing what I feel in a vulnerable way, like, I'm angry at you, that you always change it. Like, if I can voice it, like, I'm so sad that we can't have a conversation about, this,
Right.
that's a very different and very vulnerable place to go, rather than identifying the, the
Well,
anger part. You know what I mean?
well, that's where, again, go back to Sue Johnson, emotionally focused therapy, and what she says is don't talk about the stuff, because then you're going to be just sitting there and yelling and saying you're wrong, you did this, versus talk about how you feel about this stuff, the true emotion. But like I said, that's what really get people to say, oh my gosh, I'm doing that to you. I don't want to do that to you. Let me make adjustments.
Yeah, and like even I'm doing that to you, like, and I hear that, and I almost want to take it out of, because if I'm just mad at you, but if I go, gosh, your behaviors, like are like to me having it be,
No,
I don't like your behaviors. I still love you, like you, whatever, but I
right.
really don't like this.
That's right.
And for a lot of people, you can talk about it on this level rather than having it be all of the,
Exactly.
the stuff that'll
Even
knock you down to
even
shame.
even to say, you know what, I love you, but right now I don't like you.
Yeah,
I don't like
yeah.
you
Yeah.
because you know what, you were supposed to be my friend and you stabbed me in the back. Okay. And I expect you to one, pull this knife out, help to heal it, and then explain to me why I should trust you that I'll never get another knife in my back. That's it. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Mm.
That's the landscape.
Like
And I'm
that.
not saying it's both, I'm not saying it's simple,
No.
and I'm not saying it should be done in a short period of time. I'm just saying, let's make sure we're working in the right direction. We're walking in that right direction, and we're doing the things that need to be done so that we meet that objective. Because again, for me, I want those who've been betrayed to feel peace, to feel love, to feel comfort, so that they can move on with their life. I had another
Y-
woman who told me last week too. She said, she was explaining a circumstance with her husband and what she did, and she said, "I hate myself." I was like, "Hate yourself?" She was like, this isn't me. It's not me." I said, "I understand, but hating yourself is not going to be the answer. The answer is learning to be able to regulate at times so that you don't act out that way. Don't lash out." I go, but you do not want to go to the extreme where you're going to start feeling a bunch of shame about what you've done along the way.
You often say slow everything down. And the more we do that, then we can, go, what is really happening here? And, and I think that that's really helpful. And I often share, what is the goal? If the goal, like, and unfortunately, I have heard from many partners that I want to make him feel as bad as I do. And it, yeah. And the whole energy is all that negativity. And I always think, oh, how toxic, for the partner, and everybody gets to choose, I mean, I'm not judging, but gosh, how isolating, how toxic, how, so what is the goal? If the goal is to heal, to have a good relationship, to build trust, all of that's a very different path than I'm going to do my darndest to, make you miserable for the rest of your life. And, yeah, I'm with you. People hopefully choose joy
And yeah,
and
you know what? And I understand that, with that woman, I understand that she would feel that way. Because there's a part of us that does. I go, what? Yeah, I want you to feel the intensity of the pain I do. I get that. But again, that's what you feel.
right.
What is real? What is reality? What will really benefit you in the long run? And that's gonna be to see him making dramatic changes where you feel safe, and then you can figure out what to do to move forward. But if it just, nope, I'm gonna make your life miserable for the rest of your life, there's no safety being developed. There's no sense of, you know, healing that's ultimately gonna come. Because there's been a line drawn in the sand. And it's just that, you know what? This is the way life is gonna be, and you're gonna have to learn to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, yes, thinking I want to, I want revenge, sure. And but it's what the actions are. So so we've got some questions. The first one is, I have been betrayed 10 months since D-Day. I have serious wounds and complex losses. Why do I need to tiptoe around his addiction? He still exhibits the behaviors you listed. It is not fair. Why am I working so hard for what? Potential? Is he even honest in his recovery? Those are all great
Yeah.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all great questions. If you remember what I said at the beginning, I don't
Mhm.
want you tiptoeing around his
Mm-mm.
addiction. I don't want you doing that.
Mhm.
First of all, 10 months, you're still, unfortunately,
Mhm.
early stages, okay? And I'm
Mhm.
sorry for what you're going through. And you're right, you do have serious wound, Melissa. And you do have major losses. What I'm seeing, what I think I'm getting, you're saying he exhibits these behaviors, okay? So what we need to do is get to one for him to start to identify, like I said before, identify what is driving those. Who's in the room? Okay, gave some examples, right? Okay, a mother in the room, a father in the room, somebody else is in that room that is getting his anxiety completely out of whack. And so therefore, you need to be able to sort that out so that he can stay regulated to be there for you. You're working hard. That's good. You're working hard for what? That's what your question is. You're working hard for you. That's what you're working hard for. Go back to Michelle May. What Michelle May says is that when a woman is really ready to heal, when she's really ready to move forward, she says, and she's convinced, you know what? It's not the relationship I'm trying to save. I'm trying to save myself. I got to do that first. And then I can figure out what to do with the relationship. You can't figure it out until you get yourself in a good place. And too many folks are so worried about the relationship for a number of reasons. And therefore then they're kind of stuck. So therefore you gotta work on you. That's why, you know. And fair? No, none of this is fair. There's nothing fair. He threw a grenade into your world. All right. I'm glad to see that you're working hard though. I'm glad. I'm hoping that he is. I don't know if he's being honest with himself. So those are check-ins. Those are the questions you have to ask. Maybe you need to sit in with his therapist and talk a little bit about what are you guys working on, what's happening. You need to make sure you have your boundaries. I know there's a new boundary, webinar that's
Work group.
here.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, work group for you guys to look at. So again, no, you your wounds are your wounds. You don't need to toe around. He's the one who's responsible for doing 90% of the work about his triggers. You may be just pointing it out to him.
Yeah, and I'm with you, and it's very early in the process, and I know 10 months, like it feels like forever, and we're talking about stuff like inner child, and he was probably under 10 when he found dissociation,
Yeah,
maladaptive coping mechanisms, etc. So however old he is, there's decades of of all of that, and it doesn't
right.
turn around in 10 months. And
That's right.
just like Dr. Eddie said, whatever, what is he doing? If he's just not acting out, that's not change. That is just, abstinence and not doing what we weren't supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
So therefore, the more work he is doing, as for him being honest in his recovery, so I'm going to do this too. Like abstinence is not doing what we were, not supposed to be doing. So sobriety is, I'm starting to make some changes. I'm starting to get a clue. Real recovery actually takes 2 to 5 years. I had somebody that was like, no, it's at least 3, and I'm like, it depends on the person. It depends how devoted they are to doing the work. And so if you
hey, I only
can,
got 10 more days left until I'm
yeah,
fully recovered.
exactly. And then the switch is going to flip, and then I'm going to, no, this is a lifelong
Right,
process,
exactly.
learning to do things differently than the way we
Right.
grew up. So
Recovery is setting out every day to do the right.
exactly.
But it comes
Daily
down to
reprieve.
right. Melissa responds back later and says here it's hard to do relational healing, couples therapy when he behaves like that. You know what? You're right. And if he's
Yeah.
behaving like that, then maybe you're not supposed to be doing couples sessions right now.
Yeah, I agree with
It
you.
may be a little too early. I
Yeah.
know the new wave is, oh, let's get them in to do couple while they're doing their individual. But sometimes, you know what? If you're going down separate paths too long, that's a problem. But in this case, if you have couples therapy is for bringing people together. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it's about to be. That's what it's supposed to be. If he's doing all these different things, then I don't know. You might want to back off from that. Especially again, you said he's a master liar. If he's still lying a great deal, then I think you might need to back away from the couple so that he continue to do a bit more his work, you do yours, and then reevaluate in like 6 months and see if that's the way to go. I know some of
Yeah.
my colleagues would disagree with that. They'll say, no, 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 you have to be there. But
And there could be points of like, okay, that your individual therapist doing a couple, there could be intermittent things, but you're sharing exactly what we see all the time is like he's still lying. So you're doing all this hard work. The focus in couples therapy is on the coupleship, neither of you. He's not going to get called out on things and he needs accountability. So I don't know how many 12-step meetings he's going to. Has he done our sex addiction 101 work group? Has he done the inner child work group? You're 10 months in, all of those our options. If he's only going to a therapist once a week and then couples therapy, do not anticipate seeing any real change. That's too little to fight a chronic condition that's 24/7. Okay, next question. How do I know if my inner traumatized child is the one who is showing up during a conflict? Are there specific signs? I feel like I'm there a lot when I'm in conflict with my wife. Probably.
okay, I assume you're saying I'm there a lot, that you're
Like in the inner child, like, yeah,
okay, in
like
the inner child.
yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
thought you were saying.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, again, there were some of the things I mentioned before that you'll see the fact of you have a bit of a trauma, you're being defensive, you withdraw, you're not being truthful about everything, trying to hide things. But to really know if your inner child is being activated, you need to identify what are your core emotional triggers. Um, and that's part of the inner child model. If you go and you look at the book Going Deeper, How the Inner Child Impacts Your Sexual Addiction, you can read about the 12 different inner inner children and how they each represent a major pain point that we're most likely to suffer growing up. And in there, at the end of every chapter, there are what we call core emotional triggers. And therefore, you select the one to say, ooh, like for example, I feel inferior. I don't belong. Those types of things. You look at those, and then when she's grieving and she says something that you start to feel your anxiety continue to rise. Okay, it was at one level, but now you're really starting to get more and more anxious. Then that's when you have to sit and think, okay, so what was that comment that she just made that got me there? And where have I heard that before in the past? Where does that lie? So I would go start by getting the book, looking at it, and then of course probably trying to reach out to someone who does inner child work. And if you want, you can send me an email at innerchildmodel@gmail.com and I can send you a referral.
And I put a note, Dr. Eddie is teaching that course online work group again, starting May 6th. So it's a Tuesday. So I put the link in, the direct link for that one. You can sign up for that too. So you can work directly with Dr. Eddie on that. Okay, my partner asks a lot of rhetorical questions and answers them himself, or is extremely invalidating. In the morning, it starts with, "Did you sleep good? Yeah, you did. I heard you snore." Ooh, he doesn't let me answer. He answers himself. I am still traumatized and don't like to talk a lot, but this is really frustrating and annoying. Or sometimes when I ask something, he would quickly react and just deny it. Well, I know it's not the case. This is really bothering me, and I don't know how to cope with this for the rest of my life. I don't want to lose him also, but what can this be?
It's anxiety. That's what it is. It's his anxiousness. Did you sleep well? Oh yeah, I know you did. I heard you snore. That's why he doesn't give you up. There's no pause for Eddie. Okay. And same thing with, again, you ask something and he just quickly jumps in, whether it's in denial or whatever it is, it's anxiety. And you're right, you should not have to live with that for the rest of your life. What I'm mandating, that's what I said. I said, I'm mandating. He needs to talk to his therapist or perhaps a different therapist, maybe a therapist that does DBT, didactic behavioral therapy, so that he can learn to slow everything down, not be as reactive, all right, to be able to lower that anxiety and learn to manage it so that he stayed more in an area of homeostasis. That's where I would go.
And I agree with all that. And I'm also thinking, and when you're not in that moment, saying, when you do this, I'm going to hold my hand up or whatever. But I love the holding your hand up. If like, and if I'm holding my hand up, I'd like you to pause. Are you open to doing that? Because I wanted to see, if I can use my words and share, whatever, like interrupting the cycle a bit too. But yes, him getting more tools,
Yeah,
even
that's
going, I'm curious about, you seem to answer the question yourself, but you're asking a question. Can you tell me more about that? If, but I feel for you because you're going like, do I have to live with this the rest of my life? And I would vote no, do something different, and just see what
right.
will help interrupt the system. But yeah, I'm sure there's anxiety and all these other things, but and he probably, like with all this stuff, it's like, there's no awareness that I'm even doing this, even if you've said it, there's still no awareness. So, Dr. Eddie, I feel like manipulation, deception, gaslighting, and lying are my husband's core addictions, much more than sex. None of the acting out has been possible without these. Is this common, and does he need sex addiction treatment or lying addiction treatment or both?
No, it is definitely common with sex addiction. And what you're describing when you talk about manipulation, deception, gaslighting, lying, what those are compulsive behaviors. And again, those are being driven by his anxiety. That is what's happening. Okay. Um, it's just like the sex addiction was driven by anxiety. His sex addiction, not being able to sit with emotional pain. The same thing here. The manipulation, deception, gaslighting. It is because you need to be able to sit with that emotional discomfort at the moment, and you can't. So again, these are all coping strategies. These are all done to protect himself or to shut down what he sees as a potential problem. The thing is that it's not done consciously to say, "Oh, I want to shut this down." Okay, it's done out of, again, this is compulsiveness. It is just a habit that he's been engaged in probably most of his life. That started way back when in order to protect himself. He needs to be able to start to break that apart by sitting with his therapist and understanding these are not the things we need to engage in any longer. All right. And what we need to also do is work on that compulsiveness to be able to slow it down so he's not so reactive, but instead he's responsive. Okay. Because then what happens? Something happens, he reacts. Instead, something happens, he no, draw it out. Now I react. And so that's what needs to go. But yes, it does look very much like the addiction, without doubt.
So I put the Sex Addiction 101 online work group, that's starting again in April. But so at our residential treatment program, they'll say, tell the truth and tell it faster. And that's every addict. And I will even extend that to, it's not just sex or porn addicts. This is, every addict, because denial is the first step, and the 12th step is, breaking through denial. And denial is, I'm lying to myself. And if I am lying to myself, then I can make everybody else believe it as well. So it is really complicated. And this is why generalist therapists who don't have any clue about this are not helpful. And
No.
the more that he's doing, the 4th through 9th steps and the 12th step, 4th step is a searching and fearless moral inventory. We are writing information out and sharing it with someone to help us get to that deeper understanding. And one final thing, we teach about a 24-hour rule and however long that is, but I have 24 hours to come back, and lies of omission or commission, like if I didn't tell you about something, and then I didn't lie. No, if I'm still lies of omission. I have 24 hours to come to you and say, when I said that or didn't say that, that was not the truth, and this is the truth. And there's always a reason. I don't want to confront things. I'm kicking the can down. You're going to be mad. I can even go so far as, I don't want to hurt you, Dr. Eddie. I don't want to hurt you by telling you the truth. So I'm doing this out of kindness for you.
Yeah,
No,
correct, right.
no. So lots of tools. This is
Oh, yeah,
learning, to
that's
do
right.
things differently, and it takes
Yes.
time. Okay, next question. My betrayer often puts me in the position of being mommy. Oh, I hate these situations. And I'm trying to pull away from that in my recovery. If I'm now identifying when he's triggered, that takes the responsibility of him trying to do that. And it
Off
feels
him.
like I'm enabling. Oh, it takes
She
off him.
corrected
Yeah, yeah.
off
Thank
of
you.
him.
I see that.
She no,
Takes
no,
the
no, she
responsibility off of
corrected it.
him. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, you know what? And again, this scenario, it happens. It's not like universal that, for many of these guys. But yeah, if you're dealing with someone who's throwing out this sense of codependency and leaning on you to try to fix it and try to make it better for him, no, then I don't want you pointing that out to him. He has to do it. But what I'm doing when he goes into those things is I'm walking away from him. I'm just not gonna engage. I'm walking away from you. Now, what you may have a man who's like, "Oh, that's good. I'm glad I got that away." And I know I've had clients who are like that, so passive that, "Oh, good, we're done." Then you know what? You have to come up with other boundaries. So maybe some very severe boundaries to give him a kick in the butt to say, "You know what? Sorry, we need to change this up. But you're not living at home anymore. I'm not your mom, okay? And no, when I try to, try to get you to engage, and you're like, no, you're not doing it. Then you really need to make changes so that you can wind up either one. Because I tell you, some of these guys, especially in this with Tammy, when she first saw that, she's like, "Oh, I hate this." These are very difficult men to change. They're very difficult. In many cases, they grew up in environment that were enmeshed. That doesn't mean a person who in that environment cannot change. They can. However, what they do is they can learn all the tools, but they just can't implement it. And why can't they implement them? Because they're afraid. They're afraid. I'm going to do something wrong. I'll be in trouble. I'll disappoint. And you can keep drilling and drilling and drilling, and you can uncover the reason why, and everything that's there. But then, yeah, then we get very excited and say, "Oh yes, okay, now I see. Now I know what I need to do." But boy, you put them in the trenches, and they just collapse again. For them, assertiveness training could probably be very beneficial. I've seen that work where they need to learn to be more assertive for themselves, stand up for themselves. So that's where I would probably go with this.
And I do agree that there's probably an element, and this is just what we're reading, of the mother enmeshment. And Dr. Ken Adams has a podcast
Yeah.
on our website, and he has a whole program, that addresses, mother enmeshment. And not all enmeshmen are sex addicts. There is a
No.
pretty strong correlation, in a sex addiction world. John Taylor has the alternating Thursdays. So the second and fourth Thursday of the month, on this platform, he works with mother enmeshment. He and Dr. Adams work a lot together. He answers a lot of questions about that as well. So, but yes, but like Dr. Eddie said, it's like, I'm holding my healthy boundary. I'm your partner, not your parent. You're not my child. Even verbalizing those things of like, yeah, you have a sponsor. So like you get to choose what you're going to do for your recovery. You will probably see a clearer path than he will, but he'll never learn. Just like a kid, he will never learn to do things that will help him grow if it's always being taken care of by you. So, and what a horrible position for you to be in. So
Yeah.
yes, that's so. Going back to Dr. Ed, he mentioned the boundaries work group that starts in April. Debbie McCrae is fantastic. She will be on the webinar tomorrow, but she is very good at internal boundaries. And part of that is I am not going to betray myself by doing whatever or saying whatever. That's I think the hardest boundary is I'm going to hold me, and I can take care of me, even when there's external things, happening. So hard to do. And so getting the knowledge, the support, having words to be able to articulate that, does
Right.
make a difference. Yeah.
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 You see, the other thing is like we look at this kind of scenario here where you said, look, you know what, I'm in a position of always being the mother. When I come up here, come on here, and I start talking about a topic, and I start saying these are different things to be doing. I'm not saying this has to be done. It's got to be done this way. There are so many. This is the thing about when we're dealing with this disorder. Okay, it's rarely black and white. It is all shades of gray. There are so many different components. There are so many moving parts that are there. So therefore, whenever any clinician start talking about, okay, this is the way we need to handle things. This is the ideal situation for dealing with it. That doesn't mean that it's carved in stone. We have to look at different pieces because everybody's story is different. While it seems that everybody's story is the same, and there are a lot of similarities to that, everybody's story is different. And it might only be that much different, but that much different could mean that the adjustment is needed in how we approach the treatment, how we approach the healing for it. So please keep that in mind, all right? We move forward.
Well, and that's why we refer to experts in this field because we want people to get the help that they need. There are many nuances, just as you were saying. Our residential treatment program is holistic. We're looking at all those different areas. We are not, but there are some programs it's very rote. We plug people in, and that's what they do. And we would not have the level of success with our clients if we did that. We want them to get the individualized help looking across all of the areas and not just going,
Yes.
well, we're just going to talk about this. We're going to ignore all those things that
Right.
are absolutely going to be a problem. And so,
Mhm.
okay, next question. I have been doing well with my addiction to pornography. I read your book. It helped a lot. It's been almost a year since my last fall. However, my wife keeps asking almost every other day if I was thinking about it and if I did something. I feel like that's just how my life would be from now on. I feel a bit helpless. What can I do?
Okay, Tammy, do you know what the problem is with this
I
comment?
was like, that's a very dysregulated partner. And that is, yeah, like, oh my goodness, like, I feel bad for partners. I feel bad for you too, don't get me wrong. But,
Right.
what the partner's focus is all on you and your addiction and fear and all of that,
Right.
rather than I'm going to trust you to take care of you and I'm going to take care of me. So,
Mhm.
I would really, I mean, you are probably not in the position to recommend to her that she participate in the boundaries work group, but what a great opportunity,
Mhm.
because in fact Debbie Allen did a webinar on our site June of 2023, and she talked about 3 circles for partners, and the inner circle can be in this, they're all different, but can be, I'm so focused on what he's doing and it's very dysregulating. Separately, Erin Snow,
Right.
our clinical director, has owned, and so I'm not telling tales on webinars, that she is also a betrayed partner. And she has talked about, I have to let him do what he's going to do. I have got to stay regulated. And this feels very dysregulating for both of you.
Right, but feeling regulated empowers her. So
Yeah.
that's good. But let's go back to this question here. So
Mhm.
so again, it's about you. Oh, this is my life. This is what it's gonna be. I feel hopeless. What can I do? And I understand. I'm not
I get it too.
minimizing,
Yeah. Mhm.
right, what that is. However, she's asking me that question on a regular basis for a reason. She's not fully healed. and she doesn't fully trust you. So if I knew when I get that question, so you've been thinking about going back and using pornography, or did you do anything? Instead of no, 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 I didn't. Why do you keep asking? Instead, I'm not saying that's what you say. I don't know what you say, but a lot of guys, that's what they do. Why do you keep asking? Like, you're annoying me. Instead, you know what? I make sense, it makes sense. I've noticed that you ask this question quite often. And it makes sense because I know you're afraid. You don't want me to go back there. But what is it that you're seeing in me that's giving you the idea that I'm doing that again? Because I'm not doing it, but I'm just curious to find out. Is there something I'm not doing with you that had you worried that I am doing that? You may find, she said, yeah, I think you're very distracted. Yeah, I feel like you're not really connected to me. Yeah, I feel like we're very distant. You may find things like that. You have to go and not make it about you, but go back to some of my previous webinars. You're not finding her pain point for her. Why do you keep asking the question? And the duh answer is she doesn't feel safe. Okay, we get that. That. But no, 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 no. I understand you don't feel safe. But what is it you're seeing that I don't see that's driving you to this? Because I don't want you driving, going out of your mind, worrying about this every day, especially when I'm in a good place. It's been a year. I've been fine, and I'm going to continue to be fine because I'm going to continue to do my work. And I don't want you to worry about all this. So let me help me. Help me to help you. Okay, does that all make sense? That's why instead of it being, oh, poor me, no, her, find her pain point and go after it.
Well, and to your point, I'm going to do my work. And I just realized I'm doing good with my addiction. And I read your book and I don't know what that, like, to me, I
Well,
was like, oh, I wonder what your actions are really showing. Cause no offense, Dr. Eddie's book is great, but if that's all you've done and I'm not acting out, that
I,
isn't any change,
I
So
fully agree with you. Reading my book, it has changed people. But you know what? I'm not leaving it up to chance that you're reading the book. Because first
yeah.
and foremost, there's so much in there that needs to be processed and digested. And sometimes you can't just do that on your own.
And I'm going to put, because Out of the Doghouse for, it's a relationship saving guide for men who have been caught cheating. And I'm going to put the Doghouse work group in. Uh, there's the link for that.
Did you put our workshop in
I
May?
did. I
Okay.
did. I put that into, yeah. So all of those will help you, help her ultimately. But the more you are showing with actions, and that's what I missed when I first read it was like, because you said I'm doing great. And I was like, well, lots of addicts say they're doing great, but what are their
Mhm.
actions really showing their partner? And if it was just
Right.
like, well, I'm just not acting out, I'm doing great, I'd be
No.
really nervous. So,
That's
okay.
not, I'm just finishing up the two groups. Well, I'm not finishing them up. We hit the halfway mark for the two groups I'm doing, the Wyman Terminal Love and the Going Deeper. And I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but this past week I did an assessment. I said, so what's going on? How do you feel? What about this group? You know, and more than half in both of the groups said, my spouse has said, I noticed something different. Okay, that at that
And you know
day,
what? Because they're doing the work.
that's exactly, I'm known for saying, do the damn work. Do the damn work. Because if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere with it. There's so many aspects of recovery. So many. We have to be able to focus on that. So let's get to our last question before we
Yes,
run out
because
of
we've
time.
got only a couple minutes. Your essay here, years and years of acting out, and my partner has been the only income earner. I was the homemaker. My partner said that because of my time off work, they funded my acting out for years. I can't disagree. I'm in recovery for over a year, doing step work, looking for a new therapist. Really hard in my state, but things are still declining. I have no personal income or savings. They won't do any in-house separation, but will agree to me sleeping in my car or spending all day there doing step work. Is this logical, just the natural consequences of what I've done? Or is it unacceptable to think I have any right to ask for financial help if we separate?
Well, all right, I'm not an attorney. I'm not gonna pretend to be one, but if I'm you, that's where I'm going. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk to an attorney to say, look, you know what? My wife wants to separate. I want to know what are my rights in doing that. Sleeping in your car, I'm sorry, I just don't think that is, you know, if not a consequence that should be here. And I've known guys who've slept in their car for months. Okay, but that's not what it should be. So that's where I would go. I go, you need more data. You need more information before you go and take any action.
And I put, should I stay or should I go webinar? And the third one is a mediator, and the fourth one is legal. But that's a whole series of, should I stay or should I go, and all of that type of thing. Um, and you're a homemaker. You didn't say if there's kiddos involved, but like, does your spouse want the kids visiting you in the car? I mean, like, I have lots of questions about this, but yeah, we're
Yep.
neither one legal attorney. But please check out. I love the mediator. She was super helpful, and then the attorney was too. So, okay, we did it. We got through the questions. We never get through all the questions. So, thank you. Great topic. So appreciate everybody's questions. Join us again next time.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.